This is Moma E. Thank you again for joining the Ask Moma E telecast. I appreciate so many of you who have let me know by way of phone call or email or text that you have been tuning in and that you have enjoyed the conversations. That's my intent, is to maybe talk about some of those things that maybe we've thought about or we've talked about in conversations with others, our friends, our coworkers, whatever. And so many of those conversations, I think many of us would enjoy, might do well to even interject your opinion, your conversation. So that's what this is about. And thank you so very much for tuning in for Ask Mama E. I was just sharing with someone that the Ask Mama E label, if you will, has been around for almost 20 years. I worked on a conventional job for several years, and many of the coworkers that I had were my children's age. And they started calling me. First I was Miss Estelle, and then I was Miss E. And then I graduated, I guess, to Mama E. And at first I was a little bit, perhaps, I don't know, offended, because I thought being Mama E sounded a little bit disrespectful in the workplace. But it occurred to me that I was simply walking in the role that God had given me. Not only was I a mother to my own 3 adult children and 3 grandchildren and now great-grandchildren, and the scripture does say that the older women ought to teach the younger. And maybe I hadn't accepted that I was an older woman, I don't know, but I have grown to think that there are some things perhaps that I have experienced that I could share with my children's generation. Therefore, Mama E. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about the State of the Union. You probably heard that terminology. You would think so, perhaps from school days, when we were younger, part of history and social studies, you might remember that we covered a chapter on the State of the Union. And I think if we were to think about, I was trying to look for a definition that would be, easy for me to remind you of the State of the Union. And so I found that the State of the Union address is an annual message delivered by the President of the United States. It's delivered to the joint session of the United States Congress. And usually the State of the Union address is presented early in the year, January, February at the latest. And even though it is presented to Congress, it's always televised. As far back as I can remember, the State of the Union address was televised to the citizens of America, okay? And it basically advised us of the current condition of the nation. And about this time every year, I have reminded married people that you perhaps would do well to evaluate the state of your union. Yeah, as a couple, you make up 1 and 2 parts of a union. And I think that it would be good for us to sit down together and talk about the state, the status, what is our relationship looking like? So that's what I want to do today. I want to lead you into a discussion about the state, the status of your union, your marriage, your relationship. What's the status? How are things going? Grab a pencil and paper if you don't mind, because I've jotted down some questions that I'd like to share with you. Hopefully you and your mate are in the same room and you can perhaps share together these questions. Hopefully you'll be able to go over them, if not now, then as time progresses. But it will help you evaluate the status of your marriage. Okay? All right. So these questions are coming from a workbook that I've used. It's by H. Norman Wright, and it's called After You Say I Do. There is a book that kind of coincides with this one, written by the same author, and it's called Before You Say I Do. And that one is directed at people who are planning to get married. And this book is for people who are already married. But I appreciate this one because so many of us did not have anyone to direct us before we got married. Many of us did not take any premarital courses. We didn't go to any retreats. So we just kind of fell in love and jumped into it. My hope is that even though you've already said I do, that I can leave you with some questions that you will be able to use together to evaluate where you are. Where are you now, and where do you intend to go? Okay? Question number 1. Describe, and this is the two of you talking together, okay? Describe how much significant time you spend together as a couple and when you spend it. I often ask couples that I'm working with this question. A lot of times we kind of think that all of the time that we spend together can be lumped together as if they all meet the criteria of being valuable time that you spent together. I want you to think about it though, because some of the time that you spent was not valuable in the sense that you did not use this time together. Many times you did not plan it, you did not enjoy it. You know, a lot of times you rode to work together or rode home together, but you were not really utilizing that time as part of the time that you were you were not benefiting from the time together. So I want you to think about the time that you spend that is significant. Okay? Not just time that you were in the garage and she was in the bedroom and neither of us had really talked to each other. We had not shared conversation with each other, especially conversation that was relevant, especially conversation that was meaningful. You know, if we think about conversation as being different levels of conversation, you know, there's the conversation that you could have with anybody, somebody at the bus stop. You know, we might talk about the weather. We talked maybe about, the sun is shining today. It rained last week. But then there's conversation that we ought to have together as a couple that is in a meaningful relationship. Then there are some times that we need to talk to that person, to our mate, in a way or about subjects that perhaps nobody else meets the criteria of being somebody I want to share this with. Does that make sense? So the somebody at the water fountain on the job, sure, we could talk, as I said, about level 1 topics, but I want you to think about the things in your conversation with your spouse that supersede level 1, and that you feel comfortable talking about the things that really matter to you, the things that perhaps you haven't shared with anyone else, okay? Evaluate then those kinds of topics, those kind of conversations, and think about how much time did you spend together and when, okay? Question number 2. Describe 5 behaviors or a task that your partner appreciates. Describe 5 behaviors or tasks that your partner does, that you appreciate. Give it some thought. You know what I think? Many times we don't tell our partners those things about them that we really value, that we appreciate. We easily tell each other the things that we don't appreciate. You know, you make me sick because you do this. But who wouldn't appreciate having someone tell them the things that I do well, the things that I like, the things that you like about me? You know, if you tell everybody else that your wife is an excellent cook, have you told her that you really like her candied yams? You really appreciate how she makes salmon croquettes? Whatever it is, and it doesn't have to be anything that's major per se, but all of us, I think, would value being told those things about ourselves that our spouse appreciates. Okay, number 3, list 5 personal qualities of your spouse that you appreciate. How is that different from listing behaviors or tasks? Tasks are things that I do that I work toward, like cooking, like cleaning the house. But when I talk about personal qualities about my spouse, I kind of think personal qualities are characteristics that I like. Your kindness. I like the fact that you remember to open the door for me. I like the fact that you pull out my chair for me. As a man, I like you complimenting me on the cologne or the aftershave that I wear. And I think too many of us take those little things for granted. And yet the guy at the water fountain at work will tell your wife how she smells good today. And I am of the opinion that the enemy plants people at the water fountain to give us the compliments that we're not getting at home. Just saying, that perhaps we ought to practice on doing those things at home for our spouses. We ought to say, you look nice today. You ought to say, babe, I really like that color shirt on you. That really looks nice. So, to list 5 personal qualities of your spouse that you appreciate. List 4 important requests that you have for your spouse at this time. Now, I want you to have that discussion when all is well. As I said, we don't, I think, pick the right times to have conversations that might be require a little thought. There might be some conversations that you want to have when we're both in a good mood, you know. If it's something that's going to cause us to get a little tense, you know, if it's something that's going to require that our conversation require that we think a little bit about it, then pick the right time, okay? 4 important requests that you have. Hon, I'd like for you to consider doing such and such for me. When we first got married or when we were dating, it seems to me that you were always so thoughtful. You know, I remember that you would sometimes just bring me a flower. You know, I don't know if you all have ever seen, and maybe they don't do it anymore, but I can remember years ago that the gas stations, many of them carried a little rose. It was an artificial flower, but it was usually on the counter, you know, where the person was that took your money, but it was where you could easily see it. And I can remember several times my husband bringing one of those home. Now, very often we think that only the big things matter. Can I disagree? That the fact that you thought about me today, it didn't cost you a lot. I think those flowers used to cost $1, you know. You could buy a bunch of flowers from Publix that were also inexpensive. But I could remember that always made me feel good. It made me feel valuable. And only because I knew that you saw the flower and thought of me. Can I suggest then that those are the kinds of things that I am recommending that you jot down? 4 things that you would request of your spouse. Do they leave their clothes on the back of the chair? And, you know, it's okay one day, and maybe even the second day. You got 2 days of work clothes that you threw over the chair. Maybe by the 3rd day, and certainly by the 4th, it's bothering me. And so maybe we need to talk about it. Maybe I need to bring it to your attention. Those are the kinds of requests that I'm talking about. 4 things that you request that your spouse do for you. List 4 important requests your spouse has for you. Now, if you can't think of anything that you think or your spouse has brought to your attention, ask them, honey, are there things that I do that you don't like, that bothers you? Or, honey, are there things that you would like to request that I change? Are there things that you would like to bring to my attention that perhaps either I don't know or I've forgotten or I didn't pay close attention to it when you mentioned it before? Those are the kinds of things I want you to talk about in this State of the Union conversation. What do you appreciate most about your partner's communication? when I think about communication, I think so often that that's probably one of the words that I hear most often among couples, that we need help with our communication. I thought that I would do a little research and see what do the experts talk about, how do they describe, define communication. So one episode or author, that I found was Tony Robbins, and he defined communications this way. Communication in relationship is about connecting and using your verbal, that's what comes out of your mouth, your written, what we write down or read, and physical skills to fulfill your partner's needs. Let's do it again. Communication is about connecting and using your verbal, written, and physical skills to fulfill your partner's needs. Very often, we think that communication is only verbal. It's only what we say. So, you ask your spouse, is something wrong? And they say, mm-mm. Or you ask, what's the matter? Nothing. As they walk out of the room, as they kind of roll their eyes or that they're not fully engaged in the conversation, and you get the impression that even though they said nothing was wrong, even though they said, I'm fine, you could tell that there was something wrong. If in fact that is the case, that lets you know that communication isn't just verbal, because many times we communicate with our body language, we communicate as Tony Robbins says, our written and physical skills. Those physical things relate to how you said it. You know, as I said, body language, all of those are ways in which we communicate. I also found another definition that I liked for communication, and it says this: communication is about expressing yourself in a healthy way. I want you to think about expressing yourself in a healthy way. Listening to your partner when they are doing the same. In other words, when your partner is expressing themselves to you also in a healthy way. What's healthy? Well, it's certainly not yelling. It's not screaming. It's not cursing. It's not referring to your partner by using name calling. Any of those things, we can already write those out as not being healthy. And hearing and absorbing what the other person has to say. Hearing, meaning not listening to you while I prepare what I'm going to say as my comeback, but really listening, that I want to hear and absorb, to take in what it is you're saying. If I say that something that you do or something that you say really bothers me, it hurts me, I don't know that you should come back with, I don't know why it hurts you, it doesn't hurt me. Well, that was not really listening and absorbing what I tried to transmit to you. I didn't yell, I didn't scream, I didn't shout, I didn't curse, I didn't yell. I respectfully talked to you about something that I needed you to understand. And what I needed from you was to listen enough, value me enough to respond and absorb. I started thinking then that maybe if communicating is in fact something that most couples have struggle with, have perhaps problems dealing with, I thought perhaps that we would talk a little more about communication. I know that this is going to be at least a 2-part session. So I want you to really give some serious thought to what communicating is. Are you willing to communicate with your spouse in a way that is respectful and healthy, and allow your spouse to also be able to communicate with you in that way? I'm going to pick up here next time as we talk a little bit more about what it means to communicate and how you're going to put the effort into learning how to improve your communication. I'm looking forward to sharing with you again. And if you would, set your notifications on Facebook so that you'll get a reminder when I'm going to be on again. And tell others, as I said at the beginning of our telecast, that people had been telling me that this kind of dialogue was helpful to them, that they appreciate it. If you appreciate what is being said and what we're trying to transmit to you, then say to somebody else, there's this lady that comes on Facebook, and I think you would enjoy some of the topics that she brings up. So I look forward to sharing with you a little bit more about the topic of communication. And so again, it's been a joy sharing with you this, and I'm looking forward to sharing with you again real soon.
In our world, women wear many hats. Whether she's our sister, auntie and mothers, or godmother, she tends to go out of her way to make everyone okay. But who checks on her? Lifetree Women Care Clinic believes in addressing all of women's health issues and preventative care issues to keep you going. Our state-of-the-art facility that can directly address all of a woman's health concerns. The caring staff of the Lifetree is waiting to serve you. Our director says it like this.
My goal is to meet every woman, one woman at a time, right where she is, and let her tell me what she needs so that we can work together to meet those needs.
Every woman deserves the best treatment, no matter what. We promise to treat the whole woman at the Lifetree Women's Care Clinic. Schedule your appointment today.
Isn't that the place to start?
Are you in the market to buy new appliances? Or to buy new furniture or a computer, but you are concerned about prices? Prices nowadays are simply astronomical, and you need to be able to purchase it low, but in a convenient way. Let me introduce you to the Maxwell Club. The Maxwell's Club will allow you to be able to purchase directly from the manufacturer. The price of Maxwell's Club is only $39.99 a year. You can shop with thousands upon thousands of manufacturers. Finally, you as the consumer have the power to purchase like some of the major companies. As a benefit of membership, you get discounts and perks around the world at places that you shop at. Sign up today. www.maxwells.club.
This season of the time that we're living in, The people will have more joy in God. Amen. I'm so appreciative that you tuned in.
Build up your most holy faith by hearing what
22 says, listen to your father who gave you life, and do not despise your mother when she is old. It's our responsibility to pour this into our children. We ought to tell them what they ought to do, how they ought to do. They're not supposed to be shaping us. We're supposed to be shaping them. I heard somebody rightfully say that it's easier to build a child than to repair an adult.
Do you want to do a podcast, an actual video podcast, but don't have the equipment? Thought it would be impossible? Well, the impossible can become possible. Give us a call today. We can have your podcast on all of the major platforms in less than 3 days. Our staff is standing by to